Guys, what's going on? Semen El Piso back once again with yet another video. Today, we're gonna do another ascended literature analysis of a very good book, apparently. I read some of it and it seems to be very, very interesting. And I thought that by explaining and talking about this today, we could sort of lend a different angle to this whole how we view the generated and refined energy that we get from semen retention for you guys. Because for the most part, you know, we talk about religion, we talk about metaphysics in a certain way, but this is definitely going to lend a completely different angle. So guys, like, comment, subscribe, and we're gonna get right into it. Of course, it's gonna be a multi-part series just because the chapter is pretty long, but stay with me, be patient. It's not gonna be like over 5 parts, hopefully. The author in question is a guy named William W. Atkinson. So who this guy is he's an author, right? Just mainly an author. He's not like Charles Fillmore, but he relates to the aforementioned author in regards to him being a proponent of New Thought. We did a little research of the New Thought movement. So what that is just basically the idea that there's one general truth, and a lot of that truth could be gleaned from the different subsects of religion and groups of thought. Hinduism has something that relates to Judeo-Christianity, that has something that relates to Confucianism, so on and so forth in regards to the religions and bodies of thought. Not only he was a proponent of that, but he was also a proponent of the thought energy, what that is, how it could possibly be harnessed, and basically challenging at the time's view on personal magnetism, how it's generated and how exactly it works. So we're gonna get right into it. Let's check this out, man. So the beginning quote of this chapter that we're going to analyze for today, the name of the chapter is called The Nature of the Force. Beginning quote is, "The force, not magnetic in its nature, subtle current of thought waves. Thoughts are things. Our thoughts affect ourselves as well as others. Change of appearance following change of occupation. Thought the greatest force in the world. Thought is the greatest force in the world. I can and I will versus I can't. Practical instruction, not transcendental discourse. The adductive power of thought, fear thought, the root of injurious thinking." So already he's sort of summarizing his point of view that he's going to try to convey in this following chapter about the nature of thoughts. Like, what is thought? Our thoughts really, what are they? Is it something that just sort of just in our heads, like sort of ethereal, non-existent, really like gravity, but ever present? Or it's something a little bit more solid, something a little bit more tangible and perceivable with the, I don't know, with the ocular eye, or maybe that's something that can be picked up, you know, being in proximity to a certain type of thought. Listen, guys, I'm just as puzzled as you guys. That's why I'm asking these questions. So let's get right into it. We have a couple paragraphs that we got to go over. Hopefully we can sort of glean his main idea on his William's ideas of what an idea really is. What's the constituent of the idea? Does it have physical constituents? Let's check it out. I'm very curious too, guys. Let's check this stuff out. To the minds of most people, the term personal magnetism conveys the idea of a current radiating from the person of the magnetic individual, drawing to him all those within the radius of his magnetic force. That's what I thought too. I thought that, you know, at least in regards to semen retention, when you build up and refine this energy due to the various processes that go on, you eat something, the food gets sort of digested. Of course, there's the vitamins that are removed for energy for the body. And then of course, the even much more subtler form of the vitamins gleaned and the nutrients gleaned goes into the production of semen. The order, of course, prioritizes the semen first, but at the expense of delivering energy for the body, because as we know, as human beings, the most prioritized system of the body is the reproductive system. That is the main biological imperative of all human beings. Therefore, it will be prioritized in terms of the distribution of energy within the various systems of the body to provide the body energy. That comes second. First comes powering up the reproductive system. Let's continue. This idea, while on the whole erroneous, blasphemous, absolutely horrendous, it doesn't even make sense. Codswallop, he says, it still contains within it the germ of the real truth. There is a current of attracting force radiating from man, but it is not of magnetic force insofar as the term magnetism implies some connection with the lodestone or electricity. So, okay, Mr. Atkinson, I mean, he's gone. He lived in the mid 1800s, so obviously he's gone. So me referring to him in the camera, in the video, sorry, it's not gonna really do much because it's really falling upon deaf ears. Honestly, William Atkinson's idea of how social magnetism works in the literal sense obviously is a little erroneous. Like I don't think people thought of the process of social magnetism, of personal magnetism, working literally that way. Like, you know, say for instance, you'll be on the practice of semen retention. You sort of harness all this refined energy, this contained, refined force. And then people are just sort of attracted to you, just sort of like magnets, or like the lodestones as he describes. That's kind of, I think that's kind of wild. I think maybe he's gonna get into something a bit more deep. So we're gonna check this out. The human magnetic current, whilst bearing some resemblance to these two familiar forces in its effects, has no real connection with them so far as is concerned its origin or intrinsic nature. That which we call personal magnetism is a subtle current of thought waves or thought vibrations projected from the human mind. As we thought that it worked, I mean, for the most part, I reckon, like how semen retention works, because at the end of the day, these are all theories, but the reason why we have more and more people becoming celibate and getting on the practice of semen retention is because a lot of people are talking about the same sort of symptoms and benefits that have been happening to them on the practice of semen retention when they're completely celibate, when they're not looking at adult film material, when they're not sleeping with anyone, masturbating, so on and so forth. I believe that with that practice of semen retention, there is this magnetism that comes about because you're harnessing your energy, and then you become almost mysterious, maybe on a metaphysical level, and there's just something atomically that is speaking to other people's atoms on that level of communication that draws them to you. That's what I thought worked. I mean, that's how I thought. I mean, if I were to give a theory on the process, there it is. Every thought created by our minds is a force of greater or lesser intensity, varying in strength according to the impetus imparted to it at the time of its creation. When we think, we send from us a subtle current, which tables along like a ray, often far removed from us by space. Forceful thought will go on its errand charged with a mighty power and will often bear down the instinctive resistance of the minds of others to outside impressions, whilst a weak thought will be unable to obtain an entrance. That's interesting, right? So it's almost, the way he's describing it, it's almost how sound works, right? It's almost like how physical things exist within a physical space. When you have a thought, it's actually communicated from your body, sent out into the world, maybe impresses upon people nearby based on the efficacy of that thought, based on the strength of that thought. If you think about it, one's thoughts could literally be drowned out by other people's thoughts because other people are all thinking thoughts around you in like this sort of strong, potent way, which sort of will drown out the broadcasting of your thoughts. The idea is you want to have strong thoughts. You want your thoughts to get out there, right? I mean, at least that's what I think. And so by doing that, or to be able to achieve that, one must have that strength behind it. It's almost as if you're using a bow and arrow. The string on the bow to make it stronger. In real life, I think you'll have to do semen retention. I think semen retention powers the strength of those thoughts, and then they get sent out, and whatever happens, happens. Your reality that you thought of, that you sent out, will come to you. Will be able to obtain entrance to the mental castle of another, unless that castle be but poorly guarded. Repeated thoughts along the same lines, sent one after the other, will often direct an entrance where a single thought wave, although much stronger, will be repulsed. Let me read that again. I'm trying to understand that, because at first I thought that perhaps the more you do something, the more it gets reinforced in your mind, or the more someone picks up on that thing and like makes, responds to it. But he's saying that that's not the case. Repeated thoughts along the same line, sent one after the other, will often affect an entrance where a single thought wave, although much stronger, will be repulsed. Oh, so he is saying that. Let's read the rest of this paragraph too. It is an exhibition of a physical law in the psychical world, and exemplifies the old saying about steady dripping wearing away a stone. I was coming back from work yesterday, and I was in one of the very, very beautifully designed New York City subway stations. Sarcasm, by the way. In this subway station had a whole bunch of designs, basically, and a whole bunch of quotes all over the tunnel, right? All over the walkway. The one quote that I took notice of, even though I've been in this station hundreds of times, is this quote that says, "Dripping water hollows out a stone." I think this is the same idea behind the physical law being applied, practice, being applied to a psychical law that William is talking about. The more you think about something, the more actively you think about something, it's more of a reality, that reality coming to you in the form of those thoughts, in the form of just whatever you wish for. I say that on the practice of semen retention, we know that the mental benefits, in addition to fortifying memory, fortifying skill acquisition, and strengthening the mental faculties and willpower to continue on the practice and to bolster faith in success, whatever your personal goals are for that practice will be achieved. I think that it also helps with William's rules. The more you think about something, the more that thought is charged with that energy that is now refined and received and cultivated due to the practices of semen retention, you will have that reality that you dream about come closer and closer to you. I think it's just that simple. I think that's the reality of things. I would like to say that eventually, you know, I've been off the practice for a very long time, but currently on this streak, I'm almost 8 months in. And I feel very, very good. I feel very, very strong. I also feel that I'm in a world of endless possibility, as I probably explained in an old video. I am closer to achieving my personal goals or what is truly meant for me, and that's fine with me, whatever it may be. I also think that I definitely wouldn't have gotten close there if I didn't have like some sort of practice like semen retention that sort of reinforced my self-discipline, that reinforced self-austerity measures on expressing myself sexually in this world. All right, let's continue. We are all influenced much more than we are aware by the thoughts of others. I do not mean by their opinions, but by their thoughts. We're not influenced by other people's thoughts within the ways of, oh, you know, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me, like insults sort of thing, right? Like, oh, you have a big head, or, oh, you're knock-kneed, you walk weirdly, you walk like a duck, all right? William is not talking about thoughts like that affecting us, right? He's talking about people's literal thoughts affecting us literally, like it having a physical effect. Again, it goes back to what he said in the beginning of this chapter, talking about how thoughts are physical things that exist in a physical space. And when you think these thoughts, it doesn't remain in this sort of, in your brain, right? As some sort of captive, ethereal prisoner. Thoughts are not things that are intangible, that are caught in a tangible space. Rather, thoughts are tangible to some degree, exist on a vibration, and it's sent out and follows the physical laws. Of course, according to William. Let's continue. A great writer on this subject very truly says, thoughts are things. They are things, and most powerful things at that. Unless we understand this fact, we are at the mercy of a mighty force of whose nature we know nothing and whose very existence many of us deny. So this is some interesting stuff, man. Let's now try, if we got to this point in the video, let's try to think about things as a physical thing that is sent out. It's like a message, almost like a Morse code, right? Or sending a telegram, right? This is how we should really be thinking about thoughts from here on out. Because if we do, perhaps that will unlock some sort of secret area of semen retention that we could utilize in order to get what we feel we deserve, or what we would like to get, right? What we want to achieve. On the other hand, if we understand the nature and laws governing this wonderful force, we can master it and render it our instrument and assistant. Every thought created by us, weak or strong, good or bad, healthy or unhealthy, sends out its, we're going to the next page here, its vibratory waves, which affect to a greater or lesser extent all with whom we come in contact or who may come within a radius of our thought vibrations. So this is a very, 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 very interesting theory made by this proponent of new thought here. What I've realized too, I've been always on the practice of semen retention. Honestly, I've been on and off for the most part. Obviously, there will be some days that I practice for 2 weeks. I'll stop and then I'll practice for a month and then I'll relapse, things like that. And I've noticed that people act very, very different towards me, or they acted very, very differently towards me from when I began working in a space or entering a social space than, you know, a few months down the line, a year down the line. And I had this theory that the more I relapse, right, the more that all the contained thought energies that is cultivated by the practice of semen retention, due to what you ingest, due to the experiences that you have, are released out into the world, right, as like an explosion, which explains the sensation of orgasm, right? Because it's a release, literally, not only of your physical essence, but of your thoughts, your mental energy. That's why it's released out into the world, And people are more or less affected by these thoughts. And because their brains or their mind are not sort of apt to deal with a lot of the high energies of these thoughts that escape us when we are on the practice for a very, very long time, they tend to filter those thoughts that are coming toward them in a negative way. And that probably explains why people sort of change their behaviors towards me when I was, on the practice. After, when I stayed for a long period of time and I I released very often. It's because the people in my space are just sort of getting affected by this explosion of energy. And of course, that sort of lasts a day or two or a couple days after you've released. There is no containment, there is no psychic shield that protects and guards that thought energy. So it's leaking out, which is probably leads to another danger of why staying on semen retention, why getting off of semen retention is a bad thing. All right, let's continue, and then we're gonna end after this. Thought waves are like ripples on a pond caused by the casting of a pebble. They move in constantly widening circles, radiating from a central point. Of course, if an impulse projects the thought waves forcibly towards a certain object, its force will be felt more strongly at that point. So that's the end of the first part. We're gonna get into the second part in a little bit. My feedback on this is we need to be careful, not only, this is what I've learned, we need to be careful of not only what we think, but how we project our thoughts and how strongly we connect with what we think. For there is no way that you can hide yourself with the thoughts that you have with your mind, because according to these physical laws, these thoughts will eventually get out into the open. People will eventually get exposed to the innermost thought forms and ways of thinking, energy of thought that you contain in your vessels. That means that you are more at risk when you are practicing semen retention for a long period of time than you are when you relapse after a week, right? Say versus a month or change. I think this guy's coming in. What do you think? All right, have a good one. Closing statement is, like I said, watch out for what you think and how you think. For people, you have much more of an effect on your environment than you would like to give yourself credit for. And a lot of people will feel that and respond accordingly based on the various frequencies and levels of their mind filters. And with that being said, that's the end of part one. If you like that content, like, comment, subscribe, share the video with some peers. We're gonna continue the rest of this William W. Atkinson book analysis in part two. So don't let this world get you down. There are a lot of things that we have yet to understand about the nature of this world and the communication of the individuals thereof, but we will slowly unveil it the more we listen to Sober Del Piso and watch other content as such. So stay radiant. I shall see you guys in the next video.